Release pipelines are normally used along with the build pipelines, but their difference is that they are used in order to release an application or a service on a hosting provider. So we use them to deploy and release our application that we built it using the build pipelines. You can locate the release pipelines under the pipelines category and specifically releases. So as you can see, here are my release pipelines listed, and under pipelines are my build pipelines. So we normally refer to releases as release pipelines and to build pipelines as pipelines. In order to create a new release pipeline, you should have to go and press the new release pipeline button and name your pipeline as you want. So in order to getting started, you can choose one from the already provided templates, but I usually prefer to create an empty job and configure all the tasks by my own. So we will go with an empty job right now, and we will explain the procedure of creating a release pipeline. Stages represent a specific grouping of multiple tasks that can be used as a stage. For example, if I wanted to deploy on multiple environments, I could use one stage, for example, for the dev environment, and add another stage for example, the QA environment after the dev environment is finished. And as a last stage, I could add a production environment. I could also specify different stages for different regions of deployment, etc. We can see that release pipelines have also some variables, retention, and options that we can define. So for example, on variables, we can specify some specific variables that we want to define or to link a variable group that we have created. The retention defines how many days the artifact will be kept for every particular stage. So the artifacts are the deployments, for example, the files that have been built and have been passed to our release pipelines. And we can also define what the specific run of the stage will be named. For example, the default name is release slash and one number. For example, release 1, release 2, etc. In order to trigger your release pipelines along with the build pipeline, you should go and select the precondition deployments. So we want to trigger this particular pipeline after an artifact has been completed. So the artifact can be selected from various sources, and this could be a build pipeline, a repository push, or something else like a trigger from Jenkins, a Docker Hub, etc. In many cases, we specify our releases along with our build. So we want, when a particular build is finished, to trigger a release pipeline in order to release our application. For example, let's say we build our .NET application, then we want to release this application or a service fabric. So we would select the build pipeline that has built the application, and we would add it as artifact so that this artifact would trigger this particular release pipeline. In order to configure the release pipeline to run, we should select the trigger. So we can automatically run the release pipeline after release, or we can specify manual only, so you have to go and create manual release. We will select the deployment, the CI/CD, the continuous integration, continuous delivery for this particular release pipeline, and we will select, for example, a pre-deployment approval. This means that in order for this step to be started, the person that we defined as an approver should approve this run. For example, in production environment, you may need to define the pre-deployment approvals in order for this application to go on production systems, because many times some errors may occur or a wrong version has been built, and with this case you add an approval step so that someone could check the release before it is performed. Also, you can specify a particular filter for the branch that has been built. So in order to enable the automatic deployment after the build, we should enable the continuous deployment trigger first by pressing this Thunderstrike, and we could also specify our filter for our branch. For example, I want to release a particular application only when the main branch has been built. So this release pipeline will run only when the main branch has triggered this artifact. So when this pipeline has been triggered with the main branch, only then, and if the continuous deployment trigger is enabled, only then this pipeline, the release pipeline, will run. Let's now check a release pipeline that I have created, which is called Hello World Release. So this release pipeline will be triggered automatically after the Hello World pipeline runs. As you can see, no build branch filter has been defined, and every time the Hello World pipeline runs, then the release stage will run. In this case, we only have one stage, and by pressing this button, we can see the specific deployment settings. So first of all, we can select the agent job. The agent job defines the demands and some settings about parallelism. The important thing to notice here is that you can select your agent specification. For example, you could select Ubuntu latest or Windows latest image from the predefined agent pools, or select your own private pool. And then you should add the tasks that will run on the release pipeline. So right now I only have one task that will run, and this task is a PowerShell script. We could add more tasks by pressing the add button, and we could select from the variety of built-in tasks that are available. So in our case, I search the PowerShell and add it on our release pipeline by pressing the add button and by choosing the inline script. So right now I will remove this task, and I will only leave the one task that I have defined on my release pipeline. And when we trigger the build pipeline, we can see that the release pipeline has run, and we can see the logs by pressing the logs button. So we can see that the initiation has been made and the PowerShell script has run successfully, and you can see the output that we had written in our PowerShell script.